This is Ed, and I'm in Palm Desert, California today, and our special guests are based in the Northeast U.S. for our global audience on Global TV Talk Show unit, a business unit of globalbusinessnews.net. Okay, so this is Ken Summers, who's going to be in charge of this thing today, and I'm going to be a happy TV talk show host, producing it and helping to distribute it worldwide through our audience. Ken Summers is a long time, although he doesn't look it, a long time professional in business. And he is extremely well recognized at the top of his game as a consultant and coach. Ken Summers, thank you very much for being my special guest today and co-host on Global TV Talk Show. Please introduce Melissa and Lauren.
I most certainly will. And Ed, thank you very kindly for the very nice introduction. It's genuinely a pleasure to welcome Melissa Bernstein and Lauren Tate today. Let me just tell you the audience a little bit about both of them before we get into questions. So Melissa Bernstein is an entrepreneur, creative, and working mother of 6. As co-founder of the tremendously successful toy company Melissa and Doug, Melissa has spent the last 30 years helping children discover themselves and their passions, and their purpose through open-ended play. In 2020, after her own personal journey of self-discovery and acceptance, Melissa founded Lifelines. Through Lifelines, she is using her unparalleled creativity and imagination to reinvent well-being products and experiences to help adults strengthen their resilience, stay grounded, and unlock their full potential. Wow.
You got it, Ken.
My friend Lauren Tate, has spent the last 2 decades leading HR organizations across a variety of industries in both talent management and HR business partner roles. Most recently, Lauren was the CHRO, Chief Human Resources Officer of the Americas for AXA XL, a global commercial property and casualty insurer. At Lifelines, Lauren is Chief People Officer and leads corporate programs and content. She holds an MA in Social Organizational Psychology from Columbia University. So 2 very distinguished, highly accomplished, and eminently pleasant human beings as our guest today.
So I love the background there. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said it, and lucky to work together.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And that's in Southwestern Connecticut?
Yes, we're in Westport.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I love your artwork behind, and of course about Melissa and Doug and Lifelines. So Melissa, what's the background, the inspiration? Was it one day or one evening having a cocktail and you came up with this idea? What's the spark that got this going?
That's an amazing question. It really followed my own personal journey, as Ken said, to self-discovery. You know, I was born highly sensitive and really hid that from the world. You know, we creatives, we have high sensitivities, and to be able to create the way I do, sort of from the depths of imagination, I feel both the beauty and the pain of the world very acutely. But society just doesn't really accept people like me very readily. I hid that and basically adopted a facade my whole life, this shiny, everything's great face. But
so this is called the imposter syndrome, right?
Well, yeah, I guess you would say that. Trying to be who society really wanted me to be, and not really my true self. And I was able to do it pretty effectively, you know, for a long, long time. But as I got older, as I got into my 40s, that cry of my soul to be seen authentically grew louder and louder and louder. And I almost felt like the toys I created were a metaphor for myself in this shiny box with a bright logo, light and bright, and really hiding the truth of who I was behind it. So about 5 years ago, I finally couldn't bear it any longer, but truly, it was almost like I needed to come out as my authentic self. And I did. I shared my story. I went on a well-known podcast in a very uncharacteristic move because I create through my hands, I don't speak through my mouth, and really shared the truth that I suffered with a lot of darkness my whole life. And it really is the force behind my creativity. I mean, I wouldn't be creative without a whole lot of despair that's being channeled into those light, bright, creative products. And once I shared my truth, I realized something pretty profound, which was that there were so many others hiding their authentic selves behind a facade as well. And so many that I received thousands and thousands of letters from people saying, Melissa, what you said is the exact same thing that I'm feeling. I too am hiding. The only difference between us, honestly, was that I had somehow miraculously found a way to channel that darkness into light and make meaning through the creativity, and they hadn't. They still were wallowing in this sense of sort of lack of meaning, lack of purpose. So it was so profound in talking to these people and knowing that I believe that we all have that beautiful seed of self-expression that wants to come out and serve humanity, that I vowed to spend the rest of my life trying to help people realize their full potential and find meaning and connect to humanity in a deeper way.
So Lauren, you were friends with Melissa prior to her rediscovery?
I was not. No.
Mhm.
Unfortunately.
Yes, I wish that I had known Melissa for a lot longer than I have, but she and I have only known each other since April when I joined the company.
Ken?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So Melissa, thank you for sharing that. And, even though your journey, I guess, had an inflection point as much as 5 years ago, I think it still takes a lot of courage to be so open, so sharing in that. So thank you for that. And I think that's a good segue. Tell us a little bit about Lifelines. What's Lifelines about? What do you, I think we have a feel for what you're trying to accomplish, but please tell us about the business.
Sure. You want me to start?
Yeah, why don't you start and then I'll talk
Okay.
a little bit more about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Lifeline started as my own personal journey, right? To share my authentic self with the world, but it really became an ecosystem to help others share their authentic selves with the world as well. And basically we have a few components, right? First, we have what we call practice makes purpose. So in my journey, the first part of the journey was to go inward and really accept myself in totality, which for the most part, most of us don't ever do, right? We look externally, we sort of use the world as our barometer and our validation, and we never really go inward and really discover, who am I? What are my values? What are my ideals? And how do I align those with my actions to really be fulfilled in life? And I had to do that. And that became this journey that I took that a couple of us at Lifelines have now turned into some content, a curriculum called Practice Makes Purpose. And it's a beautiful curriculum that Lauren will talk about that we are bringing now out to the world and to a lot of corporations to help employees really realize their full potential and their full creativity and learn how to respond from their hearts, not react from their heads. So that's part of it. The second part of it is we are creating products. And the hardest part of my journey was how to get out of my head, because I am a ruminator and I overanalyze, I overthink, I overthink. And if I get in my head for even a moment, I can go down quickly. It is like the ship that's going down. And how to move, even though it's only 14 inches, that journey from here to here was the most arduous of my life. And grounding has become sort of the hardest thing for me to do. So, but being someone who loves creativity, I realized that I could ground through my senses. And this idea of connecting to our senses, sensory immersion, became super powerful because I couldn't meditate. I couldn't do all those things like focus on my breath. And the more I tried to do that, the more untethered I became. So in realizing that my senses were the key for me personally to ground, and talking to so many others and realizing they too when they smelled something, when they tasted something, when they played a musical instrument, when they listened to music, they immediately were transported to this magical, meditative, calm, present place. We're creating products around the 5. Actually, we're using 6 senses. We're using creativity as one as well. We're creating beautiful products around those 6 senses to help be the bridge between the head and the heart. So that's really the other part of Lifelines that's very key, and that is one of my true passions.
So the products that you're doing, they're not for kids, they're for people.
They're for people. They're for, I've spent 37 years creating products for children, but now what a gift to have a second chance to create products for me. So I'm actually creating products that I desperately want and will be using every single day.
And a lot of these products, as they become available, will also be integrated into our corporate programming. So for example, Melissa just talking about grounding through your senses. We do have a workshop on grounding through your senses, which when the products are available, we'll be able to use those and integrate them into the experience that companies and employees have when they participate in a workshop like that one.
Yeah, so these products are really, they're not a means to an end, just like a toy is not a means to an end. A toy is just a catalyst to unleash your imagination. These products are purely the pathway, the bridge to get into the present moment where you can fully live life to the ultimate. And that's what we're using them as. In our workshops, they'll really be, and we'll really talk about how you can take a tool, integrate it into your practice, and then it becomes associated with this sense of calm, right? This sense of being. So when you're going into a meeting that you're really nervous about, or you have to make a presentation, which untethers me all the time, I now can take one of our sensory aids and associate it, right? I can smell something, I can touch something and say, when I do this, it's going to bring me down to equanimity and I'm going to be able to perform at my best, my best level. Yeah.
Lauren, what about the use of color? Because some colors are more relaxing, such as blue. You're both wearing blue, and red, like your logo is, wow, lights on. And so what about like Ken? Isn't it a beautiful color, aqua and a gray background? That's really colorful. Lauren, what do you think about the color?
Yeah, so the color, actually, the red is the Melissa and Doug logo. So Lifelines is something completely different. And as you'll see, Lifelines is written in blue. And a lot of our products, and if you go to our website, for example, are in greens and orange hues. Think colors that are a lot more calming. And I do think, Melissa, as you've created a lot of these products, color has been definitely a component of that. And certainly not using bright, energizing colors, but using colors that are, more calming.
And actually, when we get to sight, our first sense that we're doing product in is smell. So we're focusing on the aroma category, but sight, chromotherapy, which is color therapy, is going to be part of our product. And we will talk about and integrate the use of color into our products as healing. If you want to be energized, as you said, you're going to want brighter colors. If you want to be calmed, it's going to be some more muted colors. So we'll have that integrated into our products absolutely going forward.
And
if I could, I'd like to just say a couple of other things about some of the programs that we offer, because I'd like to pick up on something that you said before about the courage that it took for Melissa to really bring her story forward. And what we want to do is be able to take that message of courage and bring it to so many leaders in the workplace, because to be able to unlock that in senior leaders, that ability to be vulnerable, to be authentic. As you know, Ken, we've worked with so many leaders who are afraid to show their true selves. And what that opens up for, not only for them as individuals, but also for their teams, when they do find the courage to really show up authentically and to be vulnerable, it's unbelievable the power that has for the team, for the organization, around productivity, around feeling in an inclusive culture, a culture where people are accepted for everything that they bring to the table and not necessarily having to fit in a box. So we have some programs and workshops, fireside chats, where we do address topics like authenticity, empathy, resilience. And I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned those things as well, because as we've been out in the marketplace talking to leaders, what we realized is there is this message around those leadership elements that Melissa can bring through her own personal journey on mental well-being as well.
And I could say from example, I led from a very stoic place. I did the work, I did the heavy lifting, so I was there with them. But when it came to vulnerability and sharing like what was going on in life, not a chance. I kept it so tightly closed and always that smile and never really showing any humanity. And when I did finally come out and sort of share that truth, it was incredible. The deluge of empathy and emotion that came out. And I had literally a line of people every day in front of my door wanting to talk to me and share their stories with me, because they finally thought, wow, she actually does understand what I'm going through. Whereas before they felt that I had no capacity to understand their lives and their emotions. And it was heartbreaking, actually. It made me realize that I should have done it much sooner. And that's what we're trying to do now through our workshops. We're trying to show leaders that you can have it both. You can have it both ways. You can be vulnerable, authentic, emotional, and still be productive, creative, a team, cohesive. And we've shown that it really, when you do have the courage to come out and be authentic, it actually leads to increased cohesiveness, increased efficiency, increased creativity, and increased productivity. It's really amazing what it opens up.
Yeah, and as a team leader, that just cascades through the organization. So I think really starting at the top, as Melissa did, she could tell stories about how that then opened up the ability for others on her team who were also leaders to do the same and to role model that behavior.
Yeah, no, and Lauren, as you mentioned, I think, genuine authenticity, not fake authenticity, is absolutely a cultural game changer.
Yeah.
And Lauren, I have to ask you, and I think the audience would probably be curious, after all the years you've spent in the traditional corporate environment, leading HR functions, what led you to join Lifelines and Melissa in this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, Ken, and one that I did spend quite a lot of time thinking about, because it was a huge change for me, leaving, big, very well-established companies where I had really climbed the corporate ladder for a lot of years. But the mission of this organization and Melissa's message and the opportunity to bring that message to so many employees and employers that I know need it now more than ever. I do think this was the time to do it. I think, especially with the pandemic, it brought a lot of these issues to light. These are issues that I've seen in the corporate world for many, many years. But I think the experiences that leaders and employers and employees had during the pandemic brought these things even more to the surface and made it just this prime opportunity for us to bring these messages to the world. And the other thing I'll say, Ken, is, looking back now, I'm almost 6 months in, which is hard to believe. Time really does fly when you're having fun. It's been so refreshing to be in an organization like Lifelines after so many years in big, well-established companies. The agility that you have in an organization like this, and the opportunity to wake up every day and know that what you're doing and the work that you're striving to achieve is having an actual impact on people. It's so much easier to see in an organization like this. And for me, it was what I needed after so many years doing that kind of work.
We're so glad she made that decision.
Thank you.
I bet you are. I mean, I don't need to tell you, you have an absolute gem in Lauren. And many other companies, I'm sure, are jealous that you were able to attract her.
Oh,
thank you, Ken.
well,
Oh, I'm confident of that.
we have a diamond.
No question about it. No question about it. Could you tell us a little bit more about the programs you do with organizations?
Sure, absolutely. Would you like me to take that?
Yeah.
So we really like to say that we will customize our solutions for the client or the organization that we're working with. So while we do have some very specific programs that we run, I really like to go into our prospective client calls to say, tell me a little bit about the things that you're grappling with today, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we can partner together. There are really four big areas, a couple of which we've already touched on. So one is authenticity. One is around resilience and how do we help employees to really build up their ability to be resilient in all kinds of situations. One is around unleashing joy and creativity. How do we find ways to tap into joy and creativity? And how does that help us to be better problem solvers, more productive, better team workers together? And then the final is around grounding through our senses, as Melissa was mentioning before. So those are our four, what I like to call areas of solution that we can bring to organizations. And we do that in a number of different ways. So we have workshops that we can co-create with our clients around those four topics. We have a signature workshop that we call Tell Your Story, where Melissa will come and tell her story of mental well-being and self-discovery to the organization. And the organization that we're working with would choose maybe 2 or 3 leaders to also open up and tell their story. And then obviously, as we were talking about, this would cascade down through the organization.
Those are so powerful.
So those are really powerful workshops. So that's one example of the kind of workshop that we would facilitate. We also do fireside chats where Melissa and a senior leader in the organization or any leader in the organization could talk about any one of those topics that I've just mentioned or other topics. What I have found, Ken, is that a lot of our messages and a lot of what Melissa has to share resonates quite well with an all-female audience.
Yes.
And I think also because of Melissa's background as a very successful female entrepreneur, a mom of 6, this idea of having it all, maybe not having it all at once, but having it all and being able to balance and juggle. And, you know, what was that journey like for her? So that has really resonated. And I think then also can tie into some of those other topics that I've mentioned. We're also starting to work a little bit on co-creating some content around maybe an offsite. So 3-day retreats that we could do with specific audiences in an organization. So many companies today are focused on inclusion and diversity, and they have employee resource groups for various groups of employees in their organization. We can do a program customized to a women's ERG, a Latina ERG, whatever the ERG might be. We can work closely to do that. We've also got some partnerships that we're working on that allow us to pull in experts from other areas. One very renowned is the McLean Hospital that's affiliated with Harvard University. We can pull in experts from McLean to talk about all different kinds of topics on mental well-being and mental health. So again, as you can see, it sort of runs the gamut. And I do like to say we have the opportunity to really customize to meet the needs of the clients and the organizations we're partnering with.
This sounds like a really natural set of offerings for what I would loosely characterize as knowledge workers. Have you had the opportunity to deliver these kinds of solutions to, well, in COVID jargon, frontline workers? Does it work as well in that environment?
So we haven't been fortunate enough to deliver to frontline workers yet. We have had a few conversations with organizations who do have big frontline employee populations that we've been in discussion with. I think the biggest challenge is how do we deliver these things? Yeah. Because obviously, Ken, you know, sit as a frontline worker sitting in a workshop is not necessarily the most effective way to deliver these messages. So that's really been the conversation that we've had with those clients. What's the best way to get this message to them? We actually this afternoon have a meeting with another big client that has a lot of frontline workers, and I think we may be able to crack the code with them. I think we just need one time to do it, and then we'll have a good model to kind of go after.
Yeah, know that we're just starting. Yeah. So we really, you know, when Lauren came in April, it was really sort of she's spearheading this effort. So we're really being entrepreneurial. We're trying a lot of things. We're testing a lot of things. And like any entrepreneur, some are working well. Some were like, wow, that was magical. And others were like, didn't work too well. We need to hone that and change it a bit. And that's what's fun. You know, I call it exhilifying. It's exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. So I think that's what being an entrepreneur is. It's like every day you've got a few things that make you say, woo, and others that you're like, oh my gosh, that was absolutely awful.
What I will say is we've worked with a lot of different kinds of companies. So we've done some of these programs for financial services companies, for CPG companies, for consulting types of organizations. And we've done some for very large organizations and for very small organizations as well. I think one of the interesting things is that the virtual aspect of our world today has allowed us to deliver these messages and these programs to very big audiences, but then also in person to some smaller audiences as well. So we've gotten to test out what that feels like also.
We've done we've done many in our short time, but we just don't have it fully honed yet.
Fair enough. Well, Melissa, I hope it's okay if I co-opt Exilify. I love that.
Absolutely. You can, I love that word, and I coined it because I couldn't find a word that explained feeling two very dichotomous feelings at the same time. So I had to make one.
Great. Well, I hope you haven't copyrighted it yet, because I'm going to borrow it.
Great. You go for it.
But I know we're running out of time. And before we sign off, I really want to thank you both very much for sharing the story, telling us about Lifelines. It sounds like it's an incredibly exciting journey. How do people who are interested in talking with you get in contact?
Yes, thank you for asking, Ken. So there are a few ways that you can get in contact with us. One, we are on LinkedIn, so you could follow us at Lifelines on LinkedIn. Melissa's also on LinkedIn, so am I. You could feel free to follow me. You could also visit our website, which is lifelinesatwork.com, and you can learn all about, in more detail, many of the programs that Melissa and I have talked about today. Or you can feel free to email me directly. My email is lauren@lifelines.com, and I would be more than happy to hear from anyone and talk with you more about how we could work together.
We have about 5 minutes left, but we could go longer if we need to. But let me ask you a question about remote, people working remote. So Melissa, I would think that people who are working remotely have mental health issues much more prominent day to day, rather than people who can hide out in an office. Hideout, with almost like referring back to what you were saying about yourself, about keeping their head down and not being public, quote unquote. So is that exilifying also?
Gosh. I mean, one of the positives of the remote, I think from my perspective and the workshop perspective, because we do a lot of community workshops. I've done hundreds since Lifeline started in 2020. And I think one of the positives is that all those folks working remotely can just very easily sign into our workshops. So in that sense, I think it's been very energizing and exilifying that I can have a workshop with 500 people, like in an instant, from all over the world, and we can all find communion together. So I think that's been actually positive. And for we introverts, I don't know. I think this has been a positive. It's a lot easier for me, I know, to work from home than to go into an office. I have to be honest, because I don't have to put up the facade. When I'm working at home, I can just be myself. And I know many others feel that way. So I think it's more terrifying for me to be in person at an office. And I know all the folks that join our workshops feel the same way.
Yeah. I'll just put my chief people officer hat on for a second and say, while all of those things that Melissa mentioned are benefits, I think the challenge for us as leaders in HR are how do we keep our employees connected to each other? Because there is still really a lot of value and importance in people in an organization being connected to each other. And I think the idea is when we do come together, what are the meaningful experiences that we're going to create and allow people to be a part of, rather than just coming to an office space to show FaceTime. That's not the point. The point is, how do we create an experience for people when they come together? How will we allow them to be innovative together, to collaborate in different ways? And I think that's the shift that needs to happen in a lot of organizations today, is thinking about the meaning behind bringing people together or physically together in the workspace.
Yeah, and Lifelines, I mean, from going from Melissa and Doug, which was always in person and very strict, hours each day, for 30 years, to going to Lifelines, which is 100% remote. I mean, you can imagine how challenging that is for Doug and me to really have to like navigate that. It's almost like we're incredulous that we're doing a company that's entirely remote. So I think one of the things that Lauren's really working on is we are having in-person retreats, like maybe every month to two, and making them very meaningful, almost like we're going to camp, right? And we do a lot of really fun, we partner up, we do games, we make it very playful so that we can feel like we're building that bond, because you're right. I mean, without that, you really have no allegiance to a company. And it's very hard to, even if you believe in the mission, it's very hard to feel it deeply when you're not with the people who are championing the mission every single day.
Lauren, may I ask, who is your direct customer? Is it the CEO or is it VP HR?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Ed, and the answer is actually it's both. It's both and. So, I could reach out to a CHRO and be able to really understand what that person's role is and how this could bring value to an organization. But I also think there's so much power in going through a business leader, whether it be a CEO or another business leader, and having them bring our services and our opportunities into their organization. I know as a CHRO, I loved it when a business person came to me and said, oh, we worked with this consultant or we worked with this vendor and I did a small workshop with my 10-person team. I would highly recommend we think about how to roll this out in a more robust way across the organization. There's no better endorsement than a business leader coming to HR and saying, this was amazing, we should try and do it more. So the answer is really our client is both. And whoever in the organization is willing to hear these messages, is ready to hear these messages and ready to roll them out to their employees.
So finally, let me ask, and Ken, please jump in here and stop me from talking. With the Great Resignation, where are all these people, and are you reaching out to them? Or are they finding you? Lauren?
Oh, it was a question. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were asking.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So, I think, there are still, with the Great Resignation, there are still a lot of leaders who actually need our kinds of services more than ever, because the idea is not the people necessarily who are leaving, but how do we save the people who are still here? How do we continue to get them engaged? How do we provide the kinds of benefits and services to them that are really going to keep them committed to our organization? So the answer is, we are continuing to seek out all of those clients, big and small, to really help them with that kind of employee engagement, because ultimately what we do is a service that will help to engage companies and their employees.
Ken?
No, I was just going to say, I really think you're in that sweet spot where demand meets solution, and timing is everything, isn't it? And it sounds like a great set of product and service offerings that are needed in this environment and for the foreseeable future, I think, because we are definitely in I won't say post-COVID because it's not gone yet, but we're approaching the next normal.
Yes. Yeah.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show. I have learned so much from you guys, and I'm going to go look it up. And audience out there, once again, what is the best website?
Yes, it's lifelinesatwork.com.
Okay, all one word, Lifelines at Work, not the @ sign, but AT.
Correct. Lifelinesatwork.com.
And I welcome you to come back at another time and let's go a little bit deeper. Ken, do you think that's a good idea?
As long as we can find some time in the very busy schedule these women lead, I'm certainly receptive.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
So much for this wonderful conversation.
Yeah, I learned a lot. And I think our audience, whether it's US or Latin America or Africa or Dubai and Tel Aviv and everywhere else. So thank you again. So I'm signing off from Palm Desert. Ken is in southeastern Connecticut, is that right?
Correct.
And you guys are in southwestern Connecticut. God, we're global, aren't we?
We are.
Okay, ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Bye.